Thank you very much, Rabbi. It's really an honor and a pleasure being here. You know, I won't be here when Rosh Hashanah comes, so it's my opportunity to say something for Rosh Hashanah. You know, before Rosh Hashanah, the Saturday before, it's Parashat Nitzavim. And it starts with saying, Atem Nitzavim Hayom Kulchem, you are all standing today in front of God, being judged. And when the Bible says all, it describes what it means by all. The head of the tribes, the policemen, the rich people, the women, the children, everybody. And then, at the end of this phrase, when the Bible wants to encompass what it means, everybody, it says, from the woodcutters to the water, pumpers?
Carriers. Water carriers.
Right. Water carriers. So, you think about it, what does it mean? I mean, it's two very simple professions, right? How can you encompass all the people of Israel talking about woodcutters and water carriers? Doesn't make sense. And the answer is very deep. When we are standing judged by God in Rosh Hashanah, when He looks at us, He doesn't care if we are rich or we are poor, or we are policemen, or we are head of tribes, or we have simple jobs. He asks Himself only one question. Are you woodcutters or water carriers? What does it mean? Woodcutters means people who take the creation, think about how long it takes to grow a tree, and then chop it, destroy nature. And on the other side, the guys who carry water from the well, they take from nature, but in order to irrigate, in order to create more plants, more prosperity, more beauty. So basically, people are two kinds. People who are negative, or people who are positive. And it's all about that. And this is why when God encompasses the whole, the people of Israel, it says, it's either you are a woodcutter or a water carrier. So this is just before Rosh Hashanah. And talking about Bible, you know, we live in biblical moments. It reminds me when I was Deputy Division Commander of the Gaza Strip, I had many delegations that used to come to Gaza. And we used to stand, many years ago, we used to stand in a site really overlooking all the northern part of Gaza. And each time it was the same. I was a colonel at the time, and they used to ask me, Colonel, what's going on in Gaza? And I used to say to them, listen, you know, basically from the day of the judges, nothing changed. You know, the Gazans attack us. We bring the people who attack them back again and again and again. Remember Samson, Gideon, Dvorah. Endless wars with the Gazans. You read the book of Judges, you look at today, and you ask yourself, what's changed? Nothing. But at the end of the book of Judges, after many, many wars with the Gazans, it says, and the land was quiet for 40 years. And our rabbis asked, why say that? What does the Bible need to state this fact? I mean, every word in the Bible matters. And the answer is that 40 years of quiet in the land of Israel is an event of biblical dimension. It never happened in 4,000 years. And we are living in a biblical moment. In a biblical moment, and it's our responsibility to make sure that when this war ends, we'll have security and prosperity for many, many years to come. Amen. And I can tell you, you know, I've been serving many years in the army. I served 30 years in the IDF. And there are two things that really impacted me in these 30 years. The first thing that impacted me happened to me when I was a battalion commander. I became battalion commander in Operation Defensive Shield, 2002, April 2002, after 2 devastating years of endless amount of terror attacks, mainly suicide bombers, 1,400 Israelis killed. We launched a major operation in Judea and Samaria, and I got command of 800 soldiers. And we fought 10 months, day and night against terror. And after 10 months, the soldiers were exhausted. And then the command said to us, you have 3 weeks to organize, you are going to 10 months more. This was tough. And I took my soldiers, 800 soldiers, to speak with them. And as I'm speaking with them, I found myself asking them a very, very strange question to ask an Israeli soldier. How many of you have ever in your life been in Jerusalem? I found out half of my battalion has never been in Jerusalem. And the half that were in Jerusalem, half of them have never been in the Kotel. And I understood that, I have great kids. They have no understanding what they're fighting for. When you don't understand what you are fighting for, you don't have this sense of rightness. You don't understand what the rabbi mentioned before. We are the people of Israel, and this is the land of Israel. It's our land. We're fighting for our land. So, I had 3 weeks. 1 week of vacation, 1 week of organizing the equipment, and 1 week of training. To train a battalion like mine, it's at least 4 months. 1 week. I said, you know what? I'm giving up my only week of training. We're going to Jerusalem. And we went for a whole week. We went to David City. We connected 3,000 years back. We went to the Kotel, to the tunnels, to the old neighborhoods, to the new neighborhoods. We went to the Knesset. And in the last day, 800 soldiers sat at the president's house and spoke with the president of Israel. When this battalion went back to the battlefield, they excelled in combat to such an extent that after 3 months in the war, the chief of staff calls me to his office. He wanted to understand what's going on with this battalion. How come they're excelling to such an extent? So I drove to Tel Aviv, to the headquarters. I was very nervous, first time in the office of the chief of staff. And he asked me, what's going on with your battalion? I said to him, listen, it's all about spirit. It's all about connecting to the why. Why are we fighting? For what are we fighting for? And I guess that the chief of staff was impressed enough that following this meeting, and after I finished my position, 2 years as battalion commander, he appointed me to be the aide-de-camp of the Chief of General Staff. Found myself moving from the tactical level to the office of the Chief of Staff, working with all the generals, with the Minister of Defense, with the Prime Minister, and I was in charge of coordinating all the operations of the IDF, all the intelligence and all the international relations in the office of the Chief of Staff. And at that time, we basically managed to stabilize the situation in Judea and Samaria. Operation Defensive Shield was a huge success. We defeated the terror. With 30,000 soldiers, we managed to break this wave of terror and win decisively. At the same time, 10 years after Oslo, Gaza was in a complete loss of control. We signed the Oslo agreements in 1993. We implemented it in Gaza in 1994. We gave the Palestinian Authority that was created from the Palestinian Liberation Organization control over the cities in Gaza. And they took this place and took Gaza from the Stone Age, literally, to shooting rockets at Israel in 7 years. In 10 years, we already lost completely control. And at that time, the obvious thing to do was to take the 30,000 soldiers, not 300,000 like now, not 400,000, 30,000 soldiers that won decisively in Judea and Samaria, take them to Gaza and get it over with. It would have taken us maybe a month and a half, we would have won. Dismantle all this terror infrastructure. There were no tunnels. It wasn't the reality we have now. There were tunnels, but not to such an extent. Instead of that, one day I'm sitting with the chief of staff in his office. Secretary comes in and says, open the TV, you need to see this. We open the TV. We hear Prime Minister Sharon saying, I decided to pull out of Gaza in the middle of a fierce war. And this was shocking. We didn't understand what's the logic. There was no logic behind it. And a week later, the Prime Minister held a cabinet meeting. And I attended this cabinet meeting. Now, I've been in many cabinet meetings, some of them very dramatic, but this cabinet meeting I'll never ever forget. And if I'm standing here today, dedicating my life to Israel's security, fighting every day for the security of Israel, it's because of this cabinet meeting. I saw the Prime Minister sitting at the head of the table, all the ministers, Chief of Staff, Head of Shin Bet. The Prime Minister slaps the table and says, I decided to pull out of Gaza. What's your assessment? And I'm thinking to myself, I don't know, in the army, usually assess first and then decide. So the chief of staff says to the prime minister, Mr. Prime Minister, if you pull out of Gaza like that in the middle of a war, in 1 year, Gaza is going to become Hamastan, El-Qadastan, and Hezbollastan. This is what's going to happen in Gaza. So the Prime Minister doesn't say anything. He looks at the head of Shin Bet. He asks the head of Shin Bet, what's your assessment? He says exactly what the Chief of Staff said. If you connect Gaza to Egypt, endless amount of weapons, technology, know-how are going to go into Gaza. We are going to lose control. And although this was the assessment both of the army and the Shin Bet, the Prime Minister decided to go forward with his plan to pull out of Gaza, to kick out 8,000 Jews for nothing. And to me it was shocking. It was shocking because this decision making didn't make sense. It went contrary to what the army and the Shin Bet were saying. And also it was amazing to me to see how easy it is to package a decision like that and sell it to the public. And even to MKs who don't understand the repercussions. They don't know that following that there will be endless amount of operations, that they will shoot at us tens of thousands of rockets, that one day 5,000 terrorists will storm Israel, will rape women, will burn people alive, decapitate heads of people, take hostages, that will find ourselves in 2 years of war, all because of one decision. And to me it was so shocking that I said to myself, you know, we must have a very, very dominant national security organization that will dominate the public sphere of Israel and shape the narrative about what is needed to secure Israel for generations to come. So I thought about it a lot during my service, and when I retired I said, okay, I need to do something about it. At the beginning I started lecturing, talking about it, and one day I said to myself, okay, that's it, you need to really do something. And 5 years ago I founded IDSF, Israel's Defense and Security Forum, known in Hebrew as Abitchonistim. Bitachon in Hebrew means security, it's like the security guys. An organization dedicated to the defense of Israel, to really shaping the narrative about what is needed to secure Israel for generations to come. And I can say that national security is first and foremost about national values. It's about Judaism, it's about Zionism, it's about the connection to the people of Israel and the land of Israel. Without that, there is no tank and no airplane that can help you. It's all about spirit. And I started the organization with 8 officers. Today, after 5 years, 60,000 Israeli officers, commanders, operators, Shin Bet, Mossad, Army have joined. And today it has become the strongest and leading voice in Israel, shaping really the policies. I can tell you that we operate in a very interesting way. It's a combination of a grassroots movement that educates all over the country, has every week meetings and gatherings, and we talk about these issues. We do a lot of grassroots activities with the young generation. We educate in the pre-army programs, Mechinot in Hebrew, the high schools. This week we inaugurated our own pre-army program in the area of Gaza in Moshav Tkuma. We dominate national TV, radio, newspapers, and we have extensive work with the government, with Washington. Tomorrow I'm in the White House. And European Union. And this way, the combination of working on the grassroots level, educating the young generations, being on the media, and working with the government, we managed to really shape the policies to secure Israel, unlike the reality we have seen in the last 30 years. I can tell you that 2 years before the war, some of the leading generals in the organization called me and said, Amir, we need to meet urgently. Something big is happening, we need to discuss. We met urgently Friday morning in my house in Caesarea, and for 3 hours we tried to discuss what is going on. And after 3 hours, 2 years before the war, we got to the conclusion war is imminent. We are going to war. And we understood that we have only two options. It's either going to be a 6-day war scenario or a Yom Kippur scenario. It's either we attack first and we're proactive, or they will attack us and it's going to be by surprise. So we decided to write a national security assessment. We wrote an assessment of 300 pages explaining in details why war is coming and what will happen in this war, and the fact that it's going to be a multi-front war. We presented it to the former government, to Netanyahu when he was in opposition, to the head of Mossad, to the head of the National Security Council, to the President of Israel, every presentation, 10, 15 generals. And they wouldn't listen. They wouldn't listen because they were caught with a way of thinking that we need to contain the situation. We need to postpone war as much as possible. They believe that if they postpone it long enough, maybe Hamas will collapse, maybe Hezbollah will collapse, Iran. And we said, guys, it's not going to happen. There will be war way before anybody is going to collapse. In this assessment, we spoke about 4 big, potentially existential threats that threaten Israel and the Jewish people. The first threat we addressed was Iran and all its proxies. Hamas, Hezbollah, militias in Syria, Iraq, Yemen, Iran trying to achieve nuclear weapons. All this war we're fighting now, one threat out of 4. And this threat is composed of rockets, missiles, drones, and commando on our borders. And whether it's Hamas or Hezbollah, Syria, Iraq, Yemen, it's all the same kind of threat. Rockets, missiles, drones, and commando forces. The second threat we addressed, we called it the fight over the land of Israel. What's happening between the sea and the Jordan Valley, or as they like to say here, from the river to the sea. This is the same Israeli-Arab conflict that has been going on in the last 100 years. And yes, this conflict has taken shapes because now you have Arabs that have a Palestinian ID, and you have Bedouins in the Negev, and you have Israeli Arabs in the north, and you have Arabs in mixed cities, in Lod or in Jerusalem. But just like the Iranian threat, that it's all the same, rockets, missiles, drones, and commando, also the war inside Israel, this campaign inside Israel, it's all the same. You see massive illegal grabbing of land in Area C in Judea and Samaria, but at the same time you have the same illegal grabbing of land in the Negev and also in the Galil. It's all the same. Undermining security of Jews everywhere, in Judea and Samaria, in the Negev, in the Galil, in mixed cities. So these phenomena are all over. And what we said to the government is, look, it's not that you are not dealing with this well. You are not even realizing that this is a campaign. You are not on the same page. You are not in the same playground. It's like they are playing rugby and we are playing cricket. We are not even playing the same game. And this is a big problem. I mean, if you don't know, if you are not able to understand what's standing in front of you, how can you deal with this? You have to really define the problem. The third threat we talked about was delegitimation and anti-Semitism, 2 years before the war. And we said to the state of Israel, you are not realizing the gravity of the situation and how dangerous the reality is for Jews everywhere. And also how dangerous it is what the UN and the court in Hague is doing. And we said that 2 years before the war, before they have arrests against the Prime Minister and the Minister of Defense. So these 3 threats I talked about now, Iran and all its proxies, the fight over the land of Israel, and delegitimation and anti-Semitism, these are all external. And then we address the biggest threat of all. It's us, the Jews, are distancing from core Jewish values, from Zionism, forgetting that we are the heroes of our story, not the villains in our story. And this is exactly what the rabbi said before. We are the heroes of our own story, not the villains in our story. We are the people of Israel, this is the land of Israel, this is our land. And you don't mix up your identity with problem solving. Sure, there are many challenges, there are many problems we need to deal with, but you don't give up your identity in order to solve them. This is not the way to solve problems. And it's a very simple phrase to say, but this is a deep issue because many Jews are mixing their values with problem solving. And it's two entirely different things. Our values are holistic. You cannot put a hole in them. It's like a dam. If you put a hole in a dam, you have water going out in one place, and then it will go out here, 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 and at the end of the day, the dam will collapse. This is what's happening to many Jews. The dam has collapsed for them. They forgot who they are. And we need to fix that. We need to get the Jews excited again about who they are, and know that they are on the right side of history. They are the righteous. It's a big challenge. So at that time, 2 years before the war, looking at all these big, big threats and realizing that we're not really dealing with this seriously, we were really worried. And we are very optimistic people. But the situation looked so bad that we asked ourselves, how can we explain to the Prime Minister and the ministers in one picture what we're feeling? So we put a picture of a frog being boiled in a pot. And we said, this is Israel. Israel is being boiled in a pot. And you know what they say about frogs? If you take a frog and throw it into boiling water, it will jump, right? It's boiling. But if you take a frog and put it in cold water and then gradually heat it, maybe at a certain level, at a certain point, the frog will say, wow, cool, jacuzzi. But then you heat it a bit more, and the frog will start to boil until it will die inside the water. And this is what we felt. We felt that if things continue the way they are, if Iran becomes nuclear, if Hezbollah continues to grow, if Hamas continues to grow exponentially, if Israeli Arabs do everything that they are doing, we're going to lose our country. It will take 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, there will be no Israel. You know, as we were presenting this assessment, I said to myself, how do we convey this message to the general public? So I decided to write a book. In English it's called No Retreat. In Hebrew, Lo Nashuv Achor. And the book, this is the book. And the book basically is based on this assessment, but I put a lot of personal stories and interesting stories around it in order to make it interesting to read. The book was published 6 months before the war. It describes the whole war that is coming and also what will happen after the war. And when 6 months before the war, they asked me, what do you want on the cover? I said, I want a soldier looking like visionary to ahead, but the shadow of the soldier is the boy from the Holocaust, raising his hands in front of the Nazis, defenseless. This is how I felt 6 months before the war. But then, 7th of October came. And on the 7th of October, as devastating and terrible as this day was, really on a biblical level, on the 7th of October, something else also happened. On the 7th of October, this frog jumped out of the pot. It's not there anymore. There was a big awakening. Suddenly, in one day, everything changed. Terrible day, but also a day of awakening. globally. The Jewish people awoke. And we opened our eyes to understand what's happening to us and what are the challenges. And hundreds of thousands of reservists stopped fighting each other along the question, how do you choose a judge? And ran to the units to fight. And we united. And we were given a real chance to change completely our fate and keep this frog outside of the pot. And I remember a week or two into the war when everybody was shocked, and we weren't, because we saw this war coming and we're generals, we were born for this moment. So when everybody was in a shock and there was a big question, are we going into Gaza or not? What will happen? At that defining moment, the Prime Minister called us for a meeting because everything was broken. We were the only ones that were speaking common sense and understanding what's going on. So we arrived to the Kiryat and we are waiting for the meeting with the Prime Minister, and really the atmosphere is of war. And I felt, I thought to myself, this is like a Churchillian moment. When Churchill was elected, the Nazis conquered all of Europe. The British army surrounded in Dunkirk. And in this devastating moment, Churchill stands in the British Parliament and gives this inspiring, speech about victory, uplifting the British people. And I said to myself, when we go into the office to speak with the Prime Minister, this is not just about giving him a professional advice what to do with the division. This is about spirit. And we go in and we sit, and I sit in front of him. I see the Prime Minister pale, tired, sad, devastating moment to be Prime Minister. Can't even imagine, how hard it is. And this is what I said to him. I looked at the Prime Minister, I said to him, Mr. Prime Minister, I probably feel terrible. I can't imagine how you feel, what's going on with you. I mean, the sights of the 7th of October, you're probably asking yourself, how did it happen to me? But listen, Mr. Prime Minister, you must not feel like that. You are privileged. You were chosen to lead Israel in its most defining war in its history. You were chosen. All your life prepared you for this moment. It's not by chance that you are sitting in this chair. This frog jumped out of the frog, and now it's your responsibility to lead us to the biggest victory in our history. This is your moment. And the general said to him, Mr. Prime Minister, we know that you are very disappointed with the army. Really, they failed miserably on the 7th of October. But we know the commanders, we know the soldiers. Give them the command to go into Gaza. When they will go into Gaza, nothing is going to stop them. The next day, the Prime Minister gave the command to the army. And from that moment, with many challenges, we are moving steadily towards a huge victory. At the beginning, we lacked munitions, and we had to keep forces in the north, and we fought with not many forces in Gaza. And then the American administration decided they don't want this war anymore. They stopped giving us munitions. It made it very hard to fight. And when we had to go into Rafah and take control of Rafah and Philadelphia in order to stop the smuggling into the Gaza Strip, the administration said to us, if you go in, we're going to embargo you. And the Prime Minister said, if we need to conquer Rafah with our nails, we're going to conquer this place. And we did. Because it's existential for us. It took us in this reality 10 months to kill 20,000 terrorists in Gaza, to surround Hamas, to really diminish dramatically their capabilities and create a reality that they don't pose a real danger on Israel anymore. And at this stage, it was obvious that we need to shift the center of gravity from Gaza to Lebanon, to the north, because we had hundreds of thousands of Israelis displaced. We needed to fight Hezbollah. We shifted the whole army to the north and launched an amazing attack. And at the beginning of this attack, 5,000 pages exploded in the hands of the commander of Hezbollah. And by the way, today is the 1-year anniversary of the pages. Now,
I'm only going to interrupt Amir for a minute. We're going to talk about this after. This is a totally unique gift item. Couldn't be a gift item, or it's a charitable donation as well. It was created by Amir and by one of the leading technologist Mossad agents who designed this pager. This is a replica, which we had quite a job getting it in, even through customs today, and having Amir getting it out of Israel. They're numbered from 0 to 100. I had 2 other events today. They went very well. I can only tell you from my own experience, and especially in these towns from Miami up to the Palm Beaches over the years, it's always very tough to get a gift for somebody who has everything. You say, what are we going to get this person? This is something no one has. Now, even the folks that have been honored by UJA, Chabad, JNF, it's a singular item. We'll talk about it after, just before everybody recesses.
thank you. So, you know, we have several high-ranking Mossad members in the organization. One of them, by the way, commanded in Iran the bringing of the archive from Iran to Israel. And the other one that signed this is the mastermind behind the pages. And he signed this. So we had the pages, and then a huge attack on the strategic assets of Hezbollah. And as we were really fighting fiercely Hezbollah, another interesting moment which I experienced as head of IDF, I get a phone call from the American embassy that the American ambassador wants to meet with me, Jack Lew, the former ambassador. So I drive to Jerusalem in the middle of this war in Lebanon, and I go to the embassy, the new embassy in Jerusalem, and I go to his office, and when I am waiting in the waiting room, I see in front of me a huge picture, the symbol of the US, this mighty eagle, holding arrows, and the olive branch. And under the impression of this mighty eagle, I go into the room, and completely anti-climax, I see a guy that looks like Woody Allen, sitting, and I sit and we start talking, and for half an hour he keeps saying to me, we need to de-escalate. We need a ceasefire. We need a ceasefire. We need to de-escalate. And after half an hour, I look at him and I said to him, Mr. Ambassador, you know, I was waiting outside for the meeting, admiring this mighty eagle. When did you become doves? Do you think you can be a world power being a dove? It's not by chance that your symbol is an eagle, not a dove. Somebody told me you should have said turkey. So the meeting was very polite. You know, I'm a son of a diplomat. My father was an ambassador. I was grown in many, many countries. So I know diplomacy. So it was a nice meeting, but at the end of the meeting, when we stand up and where I'm about to get out, suddenly the ambassador gets really serious. He looks at me, he waves his hand, and says, if you continue attacking in Lebanon, there will be a daylight between Israel and the US. And I, you know, say, thank you, Mr. Ambassador. I get out. And as I'm walking to the car, I start understanding what he said to me. It took me a moment. And I understood that he basically threatened me, and he wants me to convey this threat to the Prime Minister and the Minister of Defense, because he knows we meet with him regularly. So I get into my car, and by the time I get to the car, I feel so angry, because I knew that if at this moment we'll stop the war, we're going to lose the war. We're going to lose everything. So I get into the car, and I phone the assistant of the Prime Minister, and they were on the plane on the way to the UN. And I don't say anything about the meeting. I didn't mention that I met the ambassador. I didn't convey the threat. But I said to him, listen, and listen well. If you don't destroy Hezbollah, I'm telling you, we, IDF, with our 50,000 members, are going to start a demonstration. We're going to, all social media will be against you. We're going to the media and so on. And he says to me, Amir, what's going on? Why are you acting like that? Everything is fine. We're attacking. We're doing the job. Why are you so angry? And he convinced me that everything is fine. And he said, wait and see. I'm telling you, everything is according to plan. I said, okay, if this is the case, no problem. 8 hours later, boom, 80 bombs on the bunker of Nasrallah. And when I see the bunker burning, suddenly the face of the ambassador in front of me, I cannot stop laughing. Daylight. So once Nasrallah was killed and Hezbollah brought on its knees, this brought also the collapse of Syria, because Hezbollah was holding the Syrian regime. And the moment the regime fell, we immediately launched a huge attack on the Syrian army, wiping it out completely, the Syrian army. And yes, it was a very dangerous army. Seizing the mountain of Hermon, the top part of the mountain of Hermon, taking parts inside Syria, so we create a buffer zone. And we found ourselves in the north in a completely different reality. I remember not long ago I met one of the generals that commanded the north, and I said to him, I think that from when I was a company commander in the 90s, we never had a better security situation in the north. He said to me, Amir, you are wrong. It's since 48. We never had a better security situation. So really, the north changed completely. And when we defeated Hezbollah in Syria, and we signed a ceasefire with Lebanon, a ceasefire, by the way, that enables Israel to attack endlessly Hezbollah. The day we signed the ceasefire, the Prime Minister said, we signed a ceasefire with Hezbollah, and now we are moving the whole center of gravity to Iran. And people didn't really listen to what he said, because people were all the time caught by the news talking about Gaza and the hostages, obviously. But he said, we're shifting the center of gravity from Lebanon to Iran. And indeed, the whole Israeli defense establishment, our industries, the army, the intelligence, the whole center of gravity moved to Iran. And for 7-8 months, the army and the industries made huge preparations. And in 8 months, we developed technologies that are beyond imagination. Technologies that bend the laws of physics and chemistry. Technologies that not only enabled us to defeat Iran in 12 days, but give Israel a technological age 50 years ahead. So when we are with the back against the wall, there is a burst of creativity. And really, it's amazing what was created in 8 months, and it enabled us to fight in Iran as if we are fighting in Gaza. Same. And Iran is far away. And doing it, by the way, without losing one plane, which was amazing. And as we were fighting, or as we were preparing to fight in Iran, the army also got the command to take over 3/4 of Gaza Strip. When I say take over, conquer, it means completely taking over the area and destroying completely all the terrorists, the infrastructure, above ground, below ground, complete takeover. So now we're at the stage where we took over 75% of the Gaza Strip, and it's completely cleared of terrorists, of tunnels, of infrastructure, and of Gazans. All of the Gazans are in the remaining 25%. Now, Israel thought that by defeating Iran and conquering 75% of Gaza Strip, the terms for a partial hostage deal will be created. There will be enough pressure on Hamas to have a partial hostage deal where we can get half of the hostages that still are in captivity. And it didn't happen. It didn't happen for many reasons. One reason is this global campaign of so-called starvation, which doesn't exist obviously, but it was a very big campaign which made Hamas feel that maybe they'll manage to stop the war. And then also the fact that the discussions in the government about the ultra-Orthodox draft and the fact that the Haredi parties left the government also made the Hamas feel that maybe we are going to elections, the government is not stable, and why do a negotiation if the government is going to fall? The third reason is that decision making at the moment is not done in Gaza. It's done by the leadership of Hamas in Qatar. And they are not feeling the pressure of war. They don't care. So they have no problem to say no. So we tried to do this partial deal. It didn't work. And now we understand we don't have time anymore. We have to win decisively the war. And therefore, the path that Israel chose is we are going to bring all the hostages. We are going to do that by destroying Hamas. We are going to the last two strongholds and we are going to destroy them completely. And Israel said, yes. And Israel set very, very clear goals, which is completely disarming Hamas, also demilitarizing the whole Gaza Strip, overriding Israeli security over the Gaza Strip, bringing back all the hostages, and creating an alternative government, not necessarily centralized, in the Gaza Strip, which is not Hamas, not Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and also not the Palestinian Authority. Probably based on the local clans that will manage the different areas. And also, once the war will be won, there will be massive relocation of people who want to leave Gaza. And half of them want to leave. So anybody who wants to leave, will facilitate that with the help of the US by coordinating with countries that are going to take them. I think that it will take a few months and the war will be over with a decisive win. I think that the army is very resolute, a reservist, the government, amid all this international pressure, we want to win. And I can tell you that the bigger the win will be, the more decisive this win will be, the greater the golden age of Israel and the Jewish people will be the day after. The day after this war, there will be peace agreements. And the economy of Israel is going to bloom. And there's also going to be baby boom. We spent a lot of time in the shelters. And I think there's going to be massive aliyah to Israel. Many Jews are waiting to make aliyah. So we are going to have a golden age. But really, to reach this point, we need to stay united and fight. And fight until we win decisively. And make sure that we at least replicate what our ancestors did at the time of the judges. At least 40 years of quiet, right? But really all the time making sure that we're strong, because at the end of the day, even talking about international relations, this world respects strengths. And we need to be strong. And when we be strong, we'll be respected. You know, the first time the US started having relations with Israel was after the 6-Day War. Until the 6-Day War, the US embargoed Israel. So all our history, from 48 to 67, we were under an American embargo. The first time the Americans thought we were interesting is when we won decisively. So this is the lesson. Be strong, you'll have good international relations. It's very simple.
A word or two about the Mechina, what just we're doing, then the rabbis right? Okay. Okay, so
Yeah.
just a word or two about
So-
what happened with the Mechina, and then
So, this is the situation, and I'm very optimistic. I mean, we hear a lot of noise and a lot of media and so on, but really, the reality is that we defeated huge enemies. We defeated Hezbollah, Syria, Iran. 3/4 of Gaza already in our hands, 25% left, and now the army is getting ready to go in and finish the job and bring us this victory. I'm not saying it's not complicated, I'm not saying there won't be prices, but we're going to win decisively. In this war, throughout the war, we have become stronger and stronger, and our enemies are becoming weaker and weaker. Every day that passes, we are stronger and they are weaker. This is what's happening. And it's all about, I think the main issue is really taking care of the young generation. This is why we're so passionate about educating the young generation. This week, we're very happy to start our own pre-army program in the Moshav Tkuma in the name of Omer Smadja, the son of Oren Smadja, which is the first Israeli medalist in judo. His son was killed in Gaza, him and his wife Liat. And next year we're going to build 2 more pre-army programs, one of them in Ariel, in the city of Ariel, and one in the north. So definitely we have a lot of challenges ahead. I'd be happy to answer questions, my friends. Please, yes.
General, thank you so much for coming and speaking. Given how much blood and treasure has gone into fighting in Gaza and defeating Hamas, which I believe, I agree, is Israel is going to win this. Why is there even any discussion about putting in a favorable government? And I've heard so many discussions about then temporarily holding on. Then why doesn't Israel? And again, not to minimize how difficult this has been, tremendously arduous, but why is Israel not reclaiming Gaza?
We might.
Well, why is there even any discussion?
I think that there is discussions, but I think that, look, we are experiencing enough international pressure, okay? So we really want to focus first at winning decisively the war. I think that we'll see how much relocation we actually manage to do, because if you relocate most of the Gazans, obviously you can take over the area and settle it. And there is also Trump's plans. Trump wants to build a big base in the north of Gaza. It's obvious that parts of Gaza are going to be taken, whether it's for American purposes or Israeli. And anyway, talking about, even just looking at it from a security point of view, Israel is going to have overriding security over Gaza forever. So we're going to stay on Philadelphia and in Rafah. We're going to stay in a very large perimeter. We're going to stay in the north part of Gaza. So there are big parts that we're going to control anyway. I think it's fairly reasonable to think that in the future we're going also to settle part of the areas.
But how do we win the war of narrative? After you defeat Hamas, etc., and Israel wins this war, what's next? What's next to fight against the narrative? Because the narrative here is also about like that.
I think that the main issue is focusing on educating the Jews. We are the problem. I mean, if you have Jews who don't get it, what can we say about Gentiles? We really need to focus about empowering our own people, about educating, as I said before, to be the heroes of our own story. Because at the end of the day, there's only 2 possible narratives. It's either our land or their land. There is no other option. Okay? And it's our land. And this is what we need to focus on.
Wow, General Avivi, this has been spectacular, amazing. Thank you very, very, very much. We are so grateful to you for your incredible leadership, your courage, your vision, and your clarity. We need people like you to be able to lead our nation in this very dark and challenging time, biblical times indeed. And it's a meeting like this when we can truly feel that Am Yisrael Chai. Thank you very, very much.
Rabbi,
It's a pleasure, an honor, and a privilege to be here with each and every one of you tonight. As Lauren mentioned, this is we're in Israel time here, so the general's got something else going on. He's on the way. He's just about 5 minutes away. But I remember many of you are aware of how supportive our community is of Israel and the IDF. We have the distinct privilege of having been able to partner with the IDF directly over the past year and a half or so, where we have been able to donate so many drones to the IDF, so many drones, that this past February when we were in Israel on the Gaza border, the IDF came over to us and they said, you're from the Chabad of Palm Beach Gardens. There's not a single unit in the entire army that has not received a drone from the Chabad of Palm Beach Gardens.
I just want to clarify, the Brigadier General is from the IDSF, Israel Defense and Security Forces. It's a different organization, but just so that you're clear.
Thank you very, very much, Lauren. So, it's beautiful to see the kind of global support that we've developed. We have a couple over here that has flown in for tonight's event, especially from North Carolina. It's Tim and Sue Lawler, right? Tim and Sue Lawler, who connected to us. They flew in specially for this event tonight because they've donated a drone, at least towards the drones project, and they're supporters of the people of Israel. They're not actually part of the Jewish people, but they stand with the Jewish people, and we want to salute you and say thank you very, very much for being our friends. A friend in need is a friend indeed, and we are grateful for you and all of the people like you that have the courage to stand up and to make a difference, to make your voices heard. Really appreciate it. As the General is just a few moments away, I'd like to begin with a spiritual spin. Because tonight this is our season opening event, early September, launching an amazing season of programs, events, classes, and spiritual experiences here at the Chabad of Palm Beach Gardens. I'd like to address the elephant in the room. You see, there's actually two wars going on right now. There's the war of missiles taking place inside of Israel from every direction. But then there's another war outside of Israel. It's not the war of missiles, it's the war of narratives. There's a war of narratives. When my wife and I were recently in Rome, we were in Rome and my wife is fluent in Italian. We were listening to the news in the taxi, and the news reported exactly how many Palestinians had been killed that day in Gaza. No mention of hostages, no mention of Israel fighting for her life or survival. It was merely insightful, it was provocative, it was obnoxious. And this is the war of narratives that we have to deal with, our children and our grandchildren in the public schools and in the college campuses. The Torah gives us an answer, and I wanted to share that with you tonight. The Torah gives us an answer. In fact, the Torah says, the only answer that will hold water. This answer was written in the Torah 2,000 years ago. 2,000 years ago, the Torah says that the time will come in the future when the Jewish people will live in the land of Israel. They'll control the land of Israel. And the nations of the world will say that you are thieves, you have stolen the land from us. Can you imagine 2,000 years ago that that's what's written in the Torah? And only the following argument is the only argument, the Torah says, that won't be able to quell the question, the attack. And here it is. The Torah explains that essentially The Bible did not need to begin with the entire book of Genesis. The book of Genesis is a book of stories of Adam and Eve, Noah and the great flood, Isaac and Rebekah, Jacob and Esau, the 12 tribes of Israel, the politics between the brothers, selling Joseph as a slave into Egypt. These are all stories. The Torah did not need to begin with these stories. The Torah could simply have started with the very first mitzvah, which is the mitzvah that the Jewish people received when they came out of Egypt. That's when the Torah could have started. But the Torah says 2,000 years ago that the time will come in the future when the nations of the world will accuse the Jewish people of having stolen the land. And that's the reason why the Bible begins with the stories of Genesis. Because when we learn that God created the world in 7 days, and that the master of the universe promised this land to Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rebekah, and to their children, Jacob, and to the 12 tribes of Israel, we then begin to realize that there's only one country in the world that has the unusual name of the Promised Land. Every other country in the world is a country that was conquered. But there's only one country in the entire universe, in the entire world, that is called the Promised Land, because it was promised by the Master of the universe, by God Almighty, to the Jewish people. That's the reason why the Bible begins a book and a half before the first commandment, so that we today, in 2025, will have the courage to stand up for what we believe in. It's enough talk about occupied territories. We should delete that from our lexicon. We shouldn't talk about occupation. We shouldn't talk about stealing other people's land. This is our home. This is the Promised Land. And when we have the courage to believe in our right to exist, that's when the nations of the land will have the courage to believe in our right to exist as well.